wanted to send you a message about this piece, Open Prairies, Open Arms, Open Hearts, which is text by the Fabulous Five, all former students of mine: Kaylee Kapp, Megan Klebe, Hannah Peterson, Arnica Schreier, and Rachel Voth. And their poetry really embodied the heart of Minot for me. The very end of it is a very special moment, which is we end with this proclamation: no matter how far we roam, to our dear beloved Minot, you will always be our home. And of course I wrote that here in Illinois, thinking back on my time in Minot, full of gratitude. First job out of grad school was at Minot State University, and the place where I met lifelong friends and where I married my wife. And so this moment, to our dear beloved Minot, you will always be our home, really connects with me and is the heart of the piece.
Good afternoon. I call to order the regular City Council meeting for Monday, April 6th. If you have electronic devices, please put them on silent or vibrate. We'll start with the clerk calling the roll.
Blessum.
Here.
Fuller. Hayes. Janser.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Pittner. Samuelson.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 3 on the agenda is the mayor's report. Tonight, the mayor's report will consist of 3 proclamations. And we're going to start with a very important one for our area and our friends. And this is that the city of Minot proclaims April as the month of the military child. Whereas April is designated as the month of the military child to highlight the important role military children play in the armed forces community, with the month of the military child being established in 1986, and whereas the city of Minot has created strong relationships with the men and women of Minot Air Force Base that benefit our community, our region, our state, and our great nation, and whereas the city of Minot encourages area schools, administrators, teachers, and staff to recognize military children and to stress the importance of providing children of military families with quality educational opportunities, services, and support to help them achieve success during their years in the mobile military lifestyle. Now, therefore, I, Mark Janser, Mayor of the City of Minot, do hereby proclaim April as Month of the Military Child in the City of Minot. And I urge all residents to recognize the critical role military families serve in the protection of our country, and to applaud military families for the sacrifices and challenges they overcome while a member of the family serves in the armed forces. Signed, Mark Janser, Mayor. So congratulations to all of you folks who are military children and parents of military family children. And we're going to present this. I have some copies for you all, and we'll all come down and maybe So this second proclamation is to recognize some young ladies for great achievement in sport in these recent times. And so as they're coming in, let me say that the mayor proclaims April 6th as Minot High School Girls Basketball Appreciation Day. Whereas the Minot Public School District is a proud institution featuring outstanding education and extracurricular opportunities, and whereas the Minot High School girls basketball team has a tradition of excellence that includes winning multiple state championships and continued that tradition by winning the state Class AA championship in 2026 through a combination of determination, talent, and hard work. Now, therefore, do I, Mark Janser, Mayor of Minot, hereby proclaim April 6, 2026 as Minot High Schoolgirls Basketball Team Appreciation Day, and encourage all Minot residents to celebrate the Majets 2026 State Class AA Championship and recognize the team members, staff, and coaches for their season of excellence that highlights the successful academic and athletic programs organized and managed by Minot Public Schools. Signed, Mayor Mark Janser. And one final proclamation today. Whereas the week of April 6th through 12th is National Public Health Week with the theme of Ready, Set, Action, which highlights public health actions happening throughout many scientific discoveries, legislation, education, and community initiatives. And whereas significant strides have been made nationally in public health since the inception of National Public Health Week back in 1994, including major reductions in childhood mortality rates, smoking rates, lead poisoning rates, and deaths due to HIV/AIDS, along with improvements in pandemic preparedness and mental health awareness and treatment. And whereas public health organizations use National Public Health Week to educate the public and policymakers, public health professionals, and the general public on issues that are important to improving the health of the people of the United States. Now therefore, I, Mark Janser, Mayor of the City of Minot, do hereby proclaim April 6th through 12th as National Public Health Week and encourage Minot residents to recognize the contributions of scientists, local, city, and state legislatures, and community activists, including public health workers, in adopting initiatives and promoting educational campaigns that have significantly improved health and longevity for the residents of North Dakota. Signed, Mark Janser, Mayor. And I think we have a representative here to receive this, if I'm not mistaken. Holly, yep.
Kayla's coming.
Okay, moving on to section 4. 4.1 is a city manager's report. City Manager Tom Joyce.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. As usual, city manager's report is attached. I stand by for any questions. If I may, Mr. Mayor, just one comment. One of the unique things with this role as city manager is that I get opportunities to get out and meet our wonderful citizens and the many groups. And last Monday, I was honored that the Minot Vet Center asked me to speak at the National Vietnam Veterans Day that was held over at the Municipal Auditorium. I think we had over 100 veterans and families and loved ones there from the Vietnam War. And no, I'm not a Vietnam veteran, but my only experience with that is that my dad, retired Lieutenant Colonel, Army Lieutenant Colonel Warren C. Joyce, was over there and served twice. So my only reflection on that is that I could share a little bit about that. And I encourage them to tell their story even how difficult it may be, because future generations and their families definitely want to know. And it kind of just tied in a little bit with Month of the Military Child, too. So I was a military child, and then, fortunate to have served in our great Air Force and have 3 great children of our own, Caroline and I do. So it all kind of comes together. But that was that was a huge honor for me, and I just really appreciate that group of our citizens continuing to get together in groups such as VFW, American Legion, DAV, that gives them opportunities to get together and support each other and hold each other up. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you very well. Any questions for the city manager? Seeing none, we move on to the city attorney's report. City attorney?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I've attached a written report, and I can stand for any questions at this time.
Any questions for the city attorney tonight? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to section 5. This is the report of the Planning Commission. Item 5.2 is a public hearing. And this is a public hearing on case number 2026-07, and it is a 2701 30th Avenue Northwest zoning map amendment annexation. Is there anyone here to speak to this public hearing? Anyone here to speak about this item, either for or against? Seeing none, what are the wishes of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a recommendation to close the public hearing and approve as presented.
Moved by Alderman Fuller, is there a second? Second. Seconded by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
Moving on, item 5.3 is case number 2026-10. It is a Sunrise Gardens preliminary plat. This plat is shown as attachment A in the agenda. Is there anybody here to speak to this item? Public hearing about the Sunrise Gardens preliminary plat. Seeing no one, council, what are your wishes?
Make a motion to close the public hearing and approve as presented.
I'll second.
Moved by Alderman Fuller, seconded by Alderman Hayes to close the public hearing and approve the item. Is there any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
5.4 is another public hearing on case number 2026-11. This is the Stonebridge Farm 7th edition. It's a zoning map amendment, annexation, preliminary plat, and easement vacation. Is there anybody here to speak about that? Public hearing on Stonebridge Farm 7th edition. I see no one coming forward. Council, what are your wishes?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing and approve the item as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Samuelson. Any discussion of the motion? Alderman Hayes.
I'd like to ask the city council to allow me to abstain. I'm owner of the company that owns that property.
I move that we allow Alderman Hayes to abstain from this vote.
All right, is there a second to that? Seconded by Alderman Pittner. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. You are allowed to abstain from this vote, Alderman Hayes. Back to the original matter. Any further discussion on the motion to approve as recommended? Seeing none, then it's time for us to vote.
The motion passed unanimously, abstaining Alderman Hayes.
Moving on to item 5.5. This is a public hearing for case number 2026-16, which are updates to the zoning ordinance text amendment. It's recommended that the council approve the zoning ordinance amendments with the ordinance in attachment A in alignment with the planning commission. Public hearing on this text amendment to the ordinances. Anybody wishing to speak to this? I don't see anyone coming forward. Council members, what are your wishes?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing and approve the text amendments as presented.
Okay, moved by Alderman Olson,
Second.
seconded by Alderman Fuller. Any discussion of the motion? Any discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and cast our votes.
The motion passed unanimously.
That takes us to section 6. Section 6 is our consent items, and tonight there are 26 of them. I have asked the aldermen if they wish to pull any of these items, and nobody wished to do that tonight. If there's anybody in the audience who is interested in having one of these consent items discussed individually, please let me know now and we'll pull it for discussion all by itself. Otherwise, the remaining items or the list of items will likely be passed on a single motion. So, yes, ma'am. So, questions on what items? Well, ma'am, this schedule has been published for, or this agenda with the items has been published for more than a week. And city staff is always available to answer questions if there are some from the public regarding those. So, I guess if we pass these, there's still typically a second reading that you could work on in between and decide which ones you, and what specific questions you had. Fair enough? Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second.
I'll move to approve. the
We
consent
didn't,
agenda.
okay, sorry.
And second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please cast your votes.
The motion passed unanimously.
All right, that concludes section 6 and takes us to section 7, which are the action items for this evening. Item 7.1 is to approve the 2027 budget schedule. Council, what are your wishes?
Move approval.
Moved by Alderman Pittner,
Second.
seconded by Alderman Olson. Any discussion? Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Schedule is published with the agenda, so everybody has access to that. If there's no discussion on it, let's go ahead and, oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to ensure that we had a ballot order drawing today. Just want to make sure that all those candidates will be informed of those meetings and included when those are posted.
Yeah, I believe we talked about that earlier, so yes, I think so. City manager's given me a affirmative, so
Okay.
good point. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, let's go ahead and vote on this item.
The motion passed unanimously.
All right. Item 7.2 is a proposed rules of order ordinance. This is something that we had talked about at a previous meeting and asked the city attorney to review and come up with a updated proposal for what we might use. This is not an item that's going to be approved tonight. The discussion is for feedback and input to the city attorney. And so I guess, city attorney, do you want to kind of comment or, run through the high points, and then we can go into discussion of what we're dealing with here?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, members of the City Council, so this ordinance updates and clarifies the rules of order that govern the meetings of the City Council, and I have then broadened that through this ordinance to apply to all the city boards and commissions as well. So the goals of this was to ensure meetings are orderly, they're consistent, and easy for the public to follow. A few additions to this include definitions for key parliamentary terms, outlining the duties for the presiding officer and members, and establishing clear procedures for making motions, debating, and voting. There's a few items in here that I wanted to receive some clarification from the council on and allow some time for the council to kind of consider in between readings. So I wanted to bring this before you here just for feedback, so that way you'd have ample time to consider it in between an official first and second reading of the ordinance to decide if you want to make any changes to that. The first change is that this ordinance does not include a process that we use pretty regularly here, which are the friendly amendments. That's not included in this ordinance, but I can certainly amend the ordinance to include that. Under the rules of order, that's generally not allowed. The more clear procedure is to vote on every amendment that's before the body. That way, everybody has a voice and it's disposed of each time. We do that through this proceeding, but everybody just needs to make sure that you speak up if you're not in agreement with a friendly amendment. So as of right now, I have it in the ordinance that that's not a procedure that we would continue, but we can certainly do that if that's what the council would like to see in this procedure.
Alderman
So-
Blessing, do you have a comment?
Yeah, if I could, just, hopefully this is okay, just so we talk about them as we go by them.
Absolutely.
So I think under Robert's rules, the concept that I would be more interested in, which the friendly amendment concept isn't quite being used right the way that we had done it anyway. The better approach, I think, is to do unanimous consent, right? So as an example, if we bring a motion and there's a second to it, and then in the discussion we figure out that, oh wait, yeah, we should word that a little bit differently, through unanimous consent, that could be adjusted by the motion maker and the second, as long as no one else disagrees, that could become the main motion. To me, that's what we've been doing, even if we called it a friendly amendment, but that's not, a friendly amendment would still be an amendment. And it would be normally voted on, whereas an adjustment to the main motion through unanimous consent would have the effect that we've talked about. And I would suggest that we do that relatively often. And all it takes is one person to say, no, I'd like to vote on that, and then we do. And then it's a regular amendment. So I would suggest, just as feedback, and certainly my colleagues can offer some additional feedback to you, I would suggest that we do give ourselves that ability. And I think if we didn't expressly talk about it, Robert's rules would govern, which is allowed under Robert's rules. So that would be my thought on it.
Just a question for the body with that feedback. Would you be contemplating seeing it run through the voting software that the council uses on the amendments, or just a simple look across the dais and see if there's any objection? If none, it will passed by unanimous consent.
As the one mainly pushing here, yeah, my thought would be the mayor would look right and look left, and as long as nobody's saying, no, I want to vote, then I think we continue.
I think I could live with that, too.
Okay. So with that feedback, what I'll do is I'll strike the friendly amendment language, and I'll kind of replace that with a unanimous consent language. Okay. So the second item I wanted to point out is the point of order, actually. As written, any member can raise a point of order if they think that the rules are being violated. They're not debatable, they're not amendable, and they don't require a second. One of the questions that had been posed to me was, should the chair be required to rule first? And so when I looked at the rules here just this afternoon, the rules do contemplate the chair also being allowed to submit a point of order to a vote of the assembly if there is a question about it. So that's something that I wanted to open up to the board, see if you wanted to provide feedback on that, on how you want to see that procedure move through.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. And Steph, since I was the one that brought it to you, in my mind, it's page 4, if everybody wants to follow along. Item C, duties of the presiding officer, number 6. If somebody up here brings a point of order and the mayor doesn't give his yay or nay on it, whether it's approved or not, or whether it's in...
Sustained, maybe.
Yes, thank you. I believe that person, if we were to take it to the whole council, that person loses one of their avenues to get the answer that they need on the point of order, right? The mayor may say, hey, I agree with that, that's a correct point of order, and then it stops. But if he says no, then that person who brings the motion has an appeal to the whole body as well. And I believe if we take one of those out of there where the chair does not say yay or nay to the point of order, I think we're losing part of the Robert's Rules of Orders there.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Alderman Blessam.
I would agree with that. I think that there is something important about the presiding officer ruling on the point of order. I think that's an important step in the process because, presumably over time, we've got a presiding officer that has done this, has been in a part of this body for a while. Doesn't mean always, but generally that's the case. And they're going to bring a level of experience to that decision that we should all give relevance to. It doesn't mean we're going to exactly agree every time, but we should hear from him on what his view is. That is one of the roles of the presiding officer. Now, that also leaves us open, as Alderman Fuller put it, to appeal that if you're not in agreement with that ruling and have the body decide it. And I think that balance is exactly as it should be. I think that's how that works best because we're able to use the presiding officer in his role as overseeing debate as well as the body as a whole making the decision.
Okay. Anybody else have any other thoughts on that? Seeing none, I guess, is that?
So then with that, I'm interpreting this direction from the council being that you would like me to remove the language about submitting the question to the governing body, require a decision to be made by the presiding officer, and then that's appealable to the governing body.
That's what I
Right.
heard as
Okay.
well.
All right, so a third item I'm looking for feedback on is the mayor's authority to move and second motions. So when I look at Robert rules, they draw a distinction between what are considered large bodies and small bodies. Small boards that function more like working groups, which are generally like 12 people or less, which kind of aligns with the council. The chair generally can make and second motions, debate, vote. Under our form of government, we have a voting mayor. We have less than 12 members. So in the broad scheme of governing bodies, thinking like Congress, the legislature, things like that, we are a relatively small governing body, but we are the governing body for our political subdivision. So given that our mayor does vote, I do have language in there that authorizes him to make a motion, second a motion, participate in debate. But that does compromise the impartiality of that chair position. So something just for the body here to consider. I don't know that we're able to amend in our ordinance. And if that's something I need to look at, I can do that. But with our change of government, we do have a voting mayor. So I did give them the authority to move second motions, participate in the debate. But again, it does compromise the impartiality of that chair position when you do that.
Alderman Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, Steph, I brought this one to you. So it's been my understanding as a whole, as this governing body for years, that the mayor has not brought or seconded motions for whatever reason. And again, that's not my decision to make, or hasn't been my decision to make in the past. But in this instance, if the mayor's sitting up here and he's reading and talking, and he says, okay, I'd like to go ahead and get a motion on that, hey, I'm gonna make the motion, that seems really weird to me and out of line as to how we run this council, right? Like, he can ask for the motion and then make the motion right behind it himself, rather than looking to one of the other council members to make that motion. It doesn't make any sense, and I would actually like to have it removed, please.
Alderman Blessam.
Yeah, and I would agree. I think one of the things as we go through this process, we all have to think of is, what does this look like 15 years from now when it's not the seven of us, right? I think we've got a functioning body. We have strong debate. We're able to work through that. The mayor does a nice job of directing that debate. I think a part of that is because he has the impartial role of leading that process. And I think that we change that dynamic, maybe not so much for the seven of us over the next couple months, but I could envision a future with a different style of mayor where that completely changes. To Alderman Fuller's point, you could ramrod through 5 or 6 sentences that go from opening an item all the way through ready to vote on an item. And I don't think that that's the right direction. So I would be with Alderman Fuller on this. And I do believe, though, that participating in debate and voting are very important parts of how our council functions. And I think we don't want to touch that. I think that those work perfectly. And you know, to your credit, Mark, you do a wonderful job typically of letting the body discuss. And then if you have something to add, you do that when appropriate. And I think that works great. And I think we don't want to mess with that. But I do think the way that you balance those two things is through the ability to bring in and second motions.
I would also, I think there's another thing that could happen in some of these circumstances, and that is that the mayor, if I really wanted to get up and talk about something, I could relinquish the chair to the president of the council, and then I'm not presiding at that particular moment, and I can talk to the rest of the body as a member, as opposed to speaking as the presider. So I think there's ways to deal with that otherwise. City Attorney.
And that is a rare occasion, Mayor, members of the city. In my time, I don't know that I've observed the mayor relinquish the chair to, say, make a motion on the floor. Is that kind of what we're contemplating here? If the mayor wanted to make a motion on an issue that was before it, he could relinquish the chair position, the president could take over, and then the motion could be offered?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, if I'm remembering Robert's rules correctly, there is a provision for how that can occur. So I think it would be possible to do that. I actually think the easiest way to think of that concept would be if the mayor, for whatever reason, had to abstain from a vote. I think that would be a place where he wouldn't want to preside over that item. And I think that is a place where he could work. That's the simplest one to explain, I think, but there could be other reasons. And I think Robert's rules allows for that method. And so I think we would have that ability if we felt that it was necessary. Now, the one thing I would say, and we may get to this in a little bit here, item number 7 on the agenda tonight, it may very well be that the mayor feels most strongly about reconsideration. And I think that, I think this is the right direction, but I don't know that leaving ourselves in a situation where there is no outlet is the right way to do it either. And so I don't know that I have an answer, but I would suggest as we work through a couple readings on this, let's keep that in mind, because he is a voting member. He is a debating member. Let's not give up his right to at least bring his thoughts forward on why something should happen. So, because again, tonight we could get to that item and he opens it to the floor and there's no motion. That means there's no discussion. And so I want to protect that right. I don't want to give that up. But I think in our general way of operating, we are better off with the presiding mayor, not a motion-making mayor.
I'm sorry, Alderman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So a question for the city attorney, because we're kind of dancing around this a little bit, but is there any place in our current ordinance that disallows the presiding officer from making a motion? I know we've always kind of believed that to be true, but is that in ordinance?
I haven't seen it. And I just can't recall if I've ever seen the mayor make a motion. I mean, we could definitely do some more digging and see if that's something that has been entertained. But in my logic, it would follow that if he's going to be allowed to vote on a matter, that he would be entitled to bring a motion on the matter, which is why I included the draft here, to have that in it. So I could do more research on that, if that's something that would be helpful for the council to see if that's ever been entertained in the past. I just don't remember off the top of my head if that's been something that we've had a mayor actually make the motion or second the motion. I'm not recalling, but again, that's off the top of my head.
In response, Mr. Mayor. So I appreciate that, and I think it could be important tonight. And moving forward, I'm glad that we are working on this so that there is some specification. But again, the mayor acts as the presiding officer, but his vote is no different than anyone else up here. And I would argue that he probably gets more interaction with our community than the rest of us do. And there are probably people who would prefer that he makes a motion because they've been able to communicate with him. So I hate to see that option taken away. I don't think it will be abused. I think that, whether it's Mayor Jantz or it's any mayor, I think they're going to open it up to see if there is a motion. But if not, I would just hate to see something just die because the mayor is not allowed to make a motion.
Alderman Fuller.
So I guess since I asked that I would like to see it removed, do we need to make a motion to do that, since there seems to be objection to that?
It would provide some clarity for me
Okay.
moving forward into the first and second readings of the ordinance. But I mean, that's also something that could be decided at first or second reading in the ordinance. I could let this stand tonight and you could think about it before the next meeting and then provide direction at the first reading as well. I mean, I don't want to pressure anybody into making a decision tonight, which is why I brought it a meeting early. So that people could have some time to think about these questions, work through them. If there's some additional research I need to do on my end, I'd be happy to do it.
Yeah. And Mr. Mayor, if I could,
Bless him.
That's actually what I would prefer to see, is a little more research and thought for the first reading. And one other data point, sort of Alderwoman Olson's point, I think, under Mason's rules, which the legislature uses, committee chairs are not explicitly forbidden from bringing motions. But I think if you asked legislators, I doubt any of them have ever seen it. So I'm willing to live in a world that it's not written, but it is extremely rare. To be honest with you, I can't sit up here and maybe in the next couple weeks before the next meeting, I might come up with some reason why that would be appropriate. I can't think of one. But I'm okay with not closing it off expressly if we can figure out some reasons why. But I think as a practice, we want to, even if it's 10, 15 years from now, we want to pass it down to our predecessor, our descendants on the council, that this is how we do things because it's better for how we function. And I think if we're able to do that and come up with language that makes sense, I'm okay with that. I think if it's allowed, it should be extremely rare, because I think there's something very important about a presiding officer being a step back from how we move through the process.
I was just going to, so I've been sitting here racking my brain to see if I could remember, and it seems to me like there was a mayor in the past who did make a motion. And, I guess my point would be on that is, I don't think it would be frequent. I certainly wouldn't be making a lot of motions. But I think leaving the door open isn't necessarily a bad thing. Because the other part of it is, or the other, as I think about how that would go, if the motion were such that nobody on the council supported it besides the mayor, is going to die for lack of a second. So in the way the process works, there's sort of something built in that kind of deals with that in terms of, if you had a presider who was just trying to ram something through, it's probably not going to work. Alderman Samuelson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When I was reading through and kind of researching this, what Alderman Blessum said earlier, I believe is correct. If you have a presiding officer that can't make a motion, he can, step down and let the next one, and then he can make his motion, is what I read in Robert's rules. So it would be there, if we limited it. And from what I understand, we could limit that for the presiding officer to do it, but he could relinquish that to make a motion and vote on it and everything else. So I believe that would still be there. So I would prefer if we do some research on it and see what that is.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could, with the
Alderman
rest of
Blessing.
the council, hopefully, Steph, I think what I'm hearing is let's have options that give us a way to have the mayor not make motions, all the way to allow him to make motions, and we can work through what we think fits the situation best. Because again, I think we can all say that the mayor today, I'm not expecting him to abuse a darn thing. I think he does a nice job up here. But I can't speak to who's going to be mayor in 15 years, and I don't think any of us can. And it's not so much could I overcome a 1-6 vote if it were me as mayor. It's that I could immediately move into an item and say, I'm going to move item 2, or I'm going to move option 2 on the agenda, which sets the debate in a certain direction. And I don't think that that's what we're wanting as a council today. So if that gives you direction, unless anybody has other thoughts, that's my thought. Let's leave it with when we get to the first and second reading so we can see how we could adjust it in that entire span. I think that'd be worthwhile.
Okay. I can do that. A couple other highlights I just wanted to touch on were the motions to reconsider. So I have that. I've expanded upon it a bit, allowing a body to revisit a vote, that it still has to be initiated by someone that voted on the prevailing side, can't be made no later than the regular meeting. And then once that is made, the action on that item suspended until the reconsideration question is resolved. Kind of feeds into another item that I made in here that's a little bit more explicit, is that a motion can be made to suspend the rules to set aside procedural requirements for a specific purpose. As I wrote it in here, it's not debatable, requires a second, has to have approval by a 2/3 vote of the body. So if we do run into something here that is a rule, like a motion to reconsider, it's not uncommon nowadays that we have a number of special meetings in between our regular meetings. Now, it's just kind of how the council's business has evolved over the past few years. We have a decent amount of meetings, so you can miss some of the questions, and we meet bi-weekly by all intents and purposes. In most instances, we don't have a lot of time to prepare or think about some of the decisions that are made, and sometimes a meeting gets in between when you want to make that motion to reconsider. So it offers a little more flexibility and a path forward for that, but it does require the 2/3 vote if that's something that the council wants to do. There is also some language on the motion to reconsider that states that if you've relied on it, if it's already been set in motion, if there's legal consequence as a result of going back and reconsidering that motion. Sometimes contracts are signed after those decisions are made. People are then relying and starting to conduct their business, expend funds based upon the decisions that are made by the council. And so I inserted some language in there that would limit our ability to go back after those types of promises are made to the people that we're conducting business with. So that kind of provides like a broad summary of this ordinance, but there's a lot in here too. So I didn't want to just present it on first reading. I wanted to give the council and the public a little time to read through and consider it before you want a first reading. So there's no other direction. I'll take that back with me, and we'll bring it back in a couple of weeks for first reading.
Okay, very well. Alderman Blessman, do you have something further?
No, just quickly, I just want to say thanks. Nice work. This is going to send us down a path that's much more tenable in the future, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. With no other business on this item, we will move on to 7.3 on the agenda. 7.3 is a approval of a resolution offering to purchase land and authorizing use of eminent domain authority. What are the wishes of the council? Alderman Fuller.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve.
Moved for approval.
I'll second.
Second.
Second by Alderman Olson. Discussion. Any discussion? Seeing none. Let's go ahead and vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
Um, 7.4 is a facade improvement number FI 19. It's a request by the Church of St. Leo of Minot Trustee Incorporated for a forgivable loan of up to $65,200 for facade improvements at 209 First Street Southeast. The recommended action is to approve the item and authorize the mayor to sign. Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Alderman Olson moves for approval.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Fuller. Discussion. City Clerk.
Just a heads up, today has been an extremely busy day, and it had been brought to my attention that it might be the wrong address that was printed on the agendas.
Oh.
The actual address is the 208 First Street Southeast that you see on the monitors. That would be the correct address for St. Leo's. The paperwork all is right, and the recommended action doesn't state the address, so it should be fine to continue forward, but I just wanted to publicly say it's 208 First Street
Great.
Southeast.
Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification. Alderman Blessam.
Thank you. This one, this one's right on the edge again, in my mind. I'm going to vote yes because there's private funds coming into this project. The one that we had before was actual public funds, taxpayer funds that were being used. Again, we've had the policy debates, and we're on a path now that sunsets this program. This one, I believe, in my mind, fits. The private funds are there. It may not be the original intent exactly of what was trying to be done by the program, but at least by the letter of the program, I believe it fits. So I'm going to vote yes.
Further discussion. Alderman Samuelson.
Thank you. I'm not a big fan of the facade improvement program, but one thing that I wanted to mention in here, there's a section in here that calls out a federal law. It's a Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act, RLUIPA. RLUIPA is zoning laws and land use for individuals and houses of worship that we cannot give them a bigger burden on our land use and our zoning laws. RLUIPA is not intended to do anything with funding. And here it says that we, by turning this down, we could look for a lawsuit. RLUIPA is not a funding law. Local governments are not required by RLUIPA to provide financial support, give grants to religious organizations. RLUIPA focuses on land use, zoning, and religious exercise. While RLUIPA prohibits discrimination against religious institutions in land use and regulations, it does not mandate direct financial support or public funding. I wanted to make that point because in here, it sounds like it falls in there. Now, I am not an attorney, but that is what I looked up. So I'm not going to support it. I don't support the facade improvement program anyway, but I just wanted to point that out, that it's put in here, and I don't think it falls under that particular law.
City Attorney, do you want to weigh in on this, or? I'm not a lawyer either.
No, and to that intent, Alderman Samuelson's correct. So, our RLUIPA, RLUPA, the Religious Land Use Practices Act, applies when government is making a land use regulation or a zoning decision, which does tie in close with our facade improvement program, but Alderman Samuelson's right, our facade improvement program really does turn around funding. A lot of the guidelines do pull in zoning requirements, like having to be in a certain zoning area. That's correct, but even so, there's other federal constitutional rules that still apply, even if that particular Land Use Practices Act doesn't, like the Free Exercise Clause, the Equal Protection Clause. There's a series of Supreme Court religious status discrimination cases that say that a government can exclude a religious organization from a generally available public benefit program just because it's religious. So there's other federal laws that we do have to take into consideration. But yes, our RULPA generally is related to land use practices, zoning regulations. Some of those are factors that are taken into consideration with facade improvement. So certain guidelines that can be considered whether or not the property is within the eligible district. That would be a consideration that could be taken in when reviewing these guidelines. So while RLUPA may not be exactly what's at stake here, kind of those same tenets behind it, not discriminating against religious institutions. That all still applies here.
Further, okay, so we're not going off the rails here by approving this if we were to do it?
No, the
Okay.
motion to approve is
In
is
order.
in order for the council to make.
Okay, just want to be sure. you know.
Yes.
All right, further discussion. Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, we've dealt with a lot of these in the past. This one to me is maybe the first one I probably will vote against for, Alderman Samuelson's points. We had some discussions on some of these items in the applications in the past saying they're, pseudo government organizations, those organizations or those applications in the past have paid property taxes. We look at, the Minot Housing Authority has $2,500 a year in property taxes from their facility. These are facilities that I would say there is not a return to the taxpayers on these projects. So again, I'll vote no on this one.
Further discussion. Alderman Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry. Oh, excuse me, Rob, City Attorney.
Sorry. So I on the tax exempt component, so one thing I would encourage the council to consider while having the discussion on this item is to focus on neutral, objective criteria that are listed within your facade improvement program guidelines, like whether the property is within an eligible district, do the improvements meet the design standards, do they have a complete application? Those are all in order. The tax exempt status, I would offer it's not easily severed from religious identity because churches are tax exempt because they are religious organizations. So if the council's considering electing no on this vote, I would encourage you to please focus more so on the neutral objective criteria that are within that facade improvement program and the application, as opposed to whether or not they're paying taxes.
Alderman Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Two quick things to Steph's point. Property tax. They aren't paying property tax, but I'm sure they're paying sales tax where this money is going to be coming out of, at least for some things. So I understand where that's coming from. But we talk all the time about how we're beautifying downtown and everything else. The church has put millions of dollars not only into the church, but also into the rectory. And they're looking at saving a building by putting $2.1 million into it that's on the historical building list. So I find it odd, not for Alderman Samuelson, but for some of the others that have said they'd vote no. We voted yes for every other facade program that comes up here with the exception of one. And we told them, hey, because you get money from us, bring us a different way and we'll fix your building. But now we want to say, hey, they're not paying property tax, so we shouldn't get to do this. I find that a little bit egregious and quite honestly offensive, because they have done more in that street than anybody else that's over there, with the exception of maybe Central Campus. So I'll be voting yes on this.
Further discussion.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Blessing.
Thank you. To the city attorney, maybe Dave, whoever can answer it, Brian, do we have other instances of nonprofits that have received facade grants?
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Blessum, just off the top of my head, the Mouse River Players would be an example of a nonprofit that got facade improvement dollars.
Okay, so Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Go ahead,
this-
Alderman Blessing.
To the city attorney, so do we run a risk under our LUPA or any other one simply because we've approved a different nonprofit and not this one? To me, there's a pretty good line to be made with the ones that have, that are paying the matching funds with other funds, with other public funds. Again, I will gladly vote no on every one of these if the question was simply around whether the program had run its course and was done. I was willing to make a compromise and move us towards an orderly exit. So I would prefer to continue to apply the rules that we have, but I want to be very careful also that we're not setting ourselves into a lawsuit because we're not treating people the same way. I mean, that is a place where maybe that law applies, and if we got a different set of thresholds. I mean, the other thing that popped into my head is this program itself asks them to jump ahead of federal law in ADA. And is that a problem? Now, maybe it's okay because we're treating all of the program participants the same, but we're asking them to be above what any other downtown business or entity would be required to do if they didn't have a facade grant. And in fact, I think we've also approved some where we waived it because there wasn't a good way to do it. So this feels a little slippery right now on whether there are pitfalls with this grant.
Alderman,
City Attorney.
Mayor Blessum and Mayor Janser and Alderman Blessum. I would just encourage the council when you're making these decisions that to treat the religious applicants similar to the non-religious applicants in these. Apply the same standards to everybody. As soon as you start to apply different standards that are based on a religious or other protected class, that's where you start to run a higher risk of violating some of those equal protection federal laws.
Further discussion? Thank you, City Attorney. All right, seeing no further discussion, I think we are ready to vote on this item. Please cast your votes.
The motion passed 5-2 with dissent from Alderman Pittner and Alderman Samuelson.
Moving on, item 7.5 is a utility easement agreement with Verendry Electric Cooperative Incorporated on the airport property. What are your wishes?
Move approval.
Moved by Alderman Olson,
Second.
seconded by Alderman Fuller. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
Item 7.6 is a contract for airfield ditch stabilization design. And this is up at the airport, obviously. What are your wishes?
Move approval.
Moved by Alderman Olson,
Second.
second by Alderman Samuelson. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, let's proceed to vote.
The motion passed unanimously.
Okay, item 7.7 is a item that was added to the agenda by me to request reconsideration of our direction to city attorney regarding language in the liquor ordinance limiting special event permits to 21 days per year for any license holder. I passed out a little summary of that to all of the aldermen. Did we decide that somebody besides me has to make this motion, or
It would be somebody that was in the majority.
Right, yeah. Is anybody, I think, what was the vote on that?
It was 6-1 with Alderwoman Olson in dissent of it.
Okay.
So it would have to be any of the other 6.
Okay. Alderman Fuller,
So for discussion purposes, Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion for you.
all right, thank you.
I'll second.
Seconded by Alderman Hayes. So as this little note that I passed out to the alderman states, I've asked for reconsideration of this because subsequent to our discussion, in fact, later in that meeting, and it probably would have been before we voted if I had been more observant and seen Mr. Clemenson in the back trying to get my attention. As it turns out, there are potentially some unintended consequences of this decision, not only for Mr. Clemenson and his operation, but potentially for Minot Area Council of the Arts, who manage the Carnegie Center for the city, and potentially for Citizens Alley, as we heard about from an email that we all received today. So, in my view, I think there's potentially another way to kind of get to where we wanted to get to, which is to provide in the ordinance that a license may not be used for sequential or ongoing or continuous special events, contriving to operate 2 locations with 1 license for an extended period of time. And such a pattern would result in denial of special event permits to that license holder for 180 days. So that would be my suggestion, to kind of take a different approach to this. Alderman Blessem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess the main thing I want to say first is that I'm committed to solving the problem that was identified by staff that we've got today, which is we've got, under the current rules, we've got the ability for people to do things that I don't think the ordinance is intending. And that's to operate at 2 premises with essentially unlimited ability to do so. As I've had discussions on this item and really on the approach that you're talking about, Mr. Mayor, I think in general terms that makes sense. And I think conceptually we can all get behind that. I think the issue with it is that it leaves our staff exactly where they are today, which is now they've got another gray, fuzzy set of rules to try to enforce. And now it depends on, and we don't have this all that much today because we got pretty good rules on most stuff. But I don't want a world where, that name was on this application, so they were approved, but it wasn't this name, and they get turned down. So while I think the approach overall would be the right one if we could all be king for a day, the issue is we've got to deal with the real world where people will manipulate and where they will play games. And now that we've set the staff up to be the bad guy and decide if they're manipulating. So, I'm fine with removing the 21-day path. That was, as Paul and I have gone back and forth on a little bit up here, that's us trying to legislate from the bench here, right? That's never a good path. We're going to come up with bad solutions that way. So I'm willing to go back on that. I'm not saying that that's the right answer, but what I do want to say is I am committed to solving that problem. Because we've chosen the regulatory environment where we're going to manage everything. By leaving the caps in place and by going down a path where we have to regulate this, we're going to regulate it. And so what I would suggest is that we can reconsider this, we can choose to pull it back out, but let's continue to do the hard work to figure out how to regulate this the right way. Because I don't want to leave the staff team having to pick winners and losers on who gets to have their special events and who doesn't. I think that's a bad path. We need to come up with a way that it's enforced based on some measurable number or item that tells us whether they're in violation. And to be honest with you, I don't know what that is yet. I've been trying, but I can't come up with the answer yet.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. we're voting right now on the motion to reconsider,
Yes, you're
not
correct.
on what the change is gonna be
Yeah.
to this.
Yeah.
So I think we need to keep debate to the reconsideration.
Okay, so noted, and I agree. Further discussion on the motion to reconsider? Alderman Fuller.
Just to agree with Mike, I mean, I sat down with Carl 3 weeks ago after, and I got to hear from him. I did see Josh's email that was sent to us as well, so this is something we need to fix. We just, like Mike said, I'm fine pulling it back, but we got to figure out a way to fix it for all of them.
Okay, further discussion? All right, seeing none, let's vote on the motion to reconsider.
The motion to reconsider passed 7-0.
Okay, so Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. Michaela, did you want to go first?
It's my understanding right now that the motion on the floor then would be to add language for 21 event days in a calendar year, no limit, if contiguous to the licensed premise, because we then put the table from the, but I just don't know, do we need a first or second from this meeting, or would it be the first or second
No,
from the previous?
no, the first and second from the previous meeting would stand, so it's just the question appears before the council as though they had not voted on it before. So what would be in order would be a motion to amend that motion, or what may be cleaner is to just defeat the motion and present a new motion on the table.
Okay, so we're back to the motion that was originally passed, is what you're
Yes,
saying.
could you read that, City Clerk?
The motion was to add language for 21 event days in a calendar year, no limit if contiguous to the licensed premise, and that was initiated by Councilmember Blessum and seconded by Councilmember Fuller.
Okay. Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, I'm with Mike. Again, we've chosen to go in the regulatory route on licenses. One of the items that did come up during our discussion during the committee work was, when we were talking about whether we remove the cap or keep the cap in place, we looked at the different types of license types, and there was, almost 30 different types of licenses within the city, and those were all obviously got there because of some carve out along the way. Minot State had a license. You had, fraternal orders had licenses. There was these little carve outs that allowed individuals to have licenses. If we have chosen to go this route, this might be, again, as a path forward. When we talk about an event space, we talk about the Carnegie Center, which is utilized as an event space. We talk about Citizens Alley, a venue or an event space. It did come up during our discussions, and then again, it's been a while, of having an event or a venue license created that would allow some of these things. They were very high level. They were very broad at the time. I know it was maybe 1 meeting, 2 meetings we had discussed it. But again, that to me is, if we're not going to, because we reconsider this, and I get it for the unintended consequences, but we still, to Alderman Blessum's point, we still have someone who is manipulating the system down the street here, running 2 businesses that, to their own testimony, they were against having additional venues within the city. So again, I think we still have an issue to solve, and again, I'm just throwing this out there as an idea, and I can look for other examples of this, but an event or a venue space license that would allow a Citizens Alley or the Minot Area Council of the Arts, or the Carnegie, or the the Renaissance Regency can operate. So again, just throwing that out there, food for thought.
Ms. Clerk?
I will say, and staff can tell me if I'm wrong, but I think part of the reason why we haven't gone down exploring more about event space licenses is due to the age. Like, if everyone wants to have an all-age event, it's usually a requirement that food has to be involved. So some event spaces don't want to do the food, some don't want to do the alcohol, and so if they don't do both, it becomes a little more difficult to get the all age. And I could be wrong, but because it's been a while since we visited this, but I think that was kind of why we've never really gone down that path fully yet.
Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Fuller.
Thank you. So I guess, you know, in some of the research and stuff that I'd seen and heard, and Paul, to your point about the person that's running two bars, right? I think we have to have language in this ordinance that says you cannot run two different addresses on one liquor license. I mean, I think that solves that conundrum for all of us right there. But then back to the other one for Carl and Citizens Alley and those. So is it my understanding, and Michaela, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 years ago, we changed who could do special event permits from just the specific full liquor license holders to everybody. Is that correct? Three and a half years ago, roughly?
I've been the city clerk for 4.5 years,
Okay.
and when I came in, that's how it had been operating, from my understanding.
Okay, so maybe it was even longer back than that. But my question is, does this, if we take it, instead of saying certain days, certain events, us making a special new license or something like that, if we say, because Mike's sheet over here, he has, I think Citizens Alley uses a Blue Rider mainly as to use their liquor license. Carl, I don't know who you're using, but I'm assuming it's 2 of them, right? So if we say the main liquor licenses, the 36 full board liquor licenses that we have are the only ones that can do special permits or special events, right? Like, because the supper clubs shouldn't need them, the motels shouldn't need them, nobody else should need them. So if we say those are the only ones that can do it, and we just leave it as a part of those licenses, we don't have to set any days, we don't have to set anything, because they're the only ones that can do it. They can't run another bar with that license because we already have that law in there. But does that solve this problem if we revert back to that?
Obviously, that's a decision for the council to make, but and this is just off the top of my head, Point of View Winery comes in and does the farmer's market, and they get special event permits to sell their wine at the farmer's market, so I can see that they wouldn't be able to, since they technically have a winery license.
But, I mean, to the point of that, they just have to find a bar then that will allow them to use that license for special permit, like the other folks are doing.
Yeah, I mean, the bar, and like I said, you know, if Dale or any of the PD wants to interrupt me, I believe the bar would have to buy the wine, and then they would have to be the ones to sell.
Okay.
It wouldn't be Point of View being out there, because Point of View no longer owns the wine.
Okay.
So it would be the bar getting the permit. They'd be the ones responsible to sell it.
City Attorney.
And Alderman Fuller, to the question about if just having the full license holders with the special event permits, would it solve the issue that's at hand? It's a full licensed person that is operating another premises with no determined end on it. And to that end, I would just say, as I read the ordinances as they currently exist, we've never allowed somebody to operate a second premises like permanently with no end in sight. It's always been a temporary means to an end. It's been a pop-up. The Christmas bar is a good example, where it's just been for a fixed period of time. I know when the golf course had changed vendors, they were looking for somebody to fill that gap for a short period of time. It was never a permanent fix. And so that's where I, from the legal standpoint, see a distinction in this. If somebody's taking out special events 2 weeks at a time for another place, at some point, staff is going to see it and have to throw the red flag and say, hey, you're operating 2 premises. What's difficult is figuring out what's the threshold, because that's not determined. And so we'd have to reach a certain point in the number of special event permits where we'd say, okay, now you're operating a permanent premises. And the argument on the other side is always going to be like, nope, I always intended on only taking out 40 special event permits. And
One at a time, yeah.
Yeah, one at a time.
Exactly.
Alderman Blessum.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, can you come up for a moment? I've got a thought that's been going through my head on this, and I wanted to get your take on it, sir. So, Chief, while you're on the way, the thought process that's gone through my mind, can you tell us, if you've got somebody that's operating a bar today that you would inspect, that you would regulate, if they're working off premises, they're doing a large number of events, they're working all over town, Are there things that you're worried about that you would want to keep a close eye on? And where I'm going with this is, really, should we have what amounts to a rider on our normal license that allows them to jump through some extra hoops with you to certify themselves as being able to do event permits? And the reason I ask that, again, we might charge a little more. Again, it's not about the money. It's more about saying to you, Chief, I'm willing to work with you as a business owner. I want to be able to do this all over town. I want to be able to make sure I'm meeting the needs of the community in the market. Could they work with you to carve out a way to really bring that regulatory environment into a spot that makes sense? And then the idea is all the rest of them, they maybe get 5 days a year. They do one-offs, a couple, but the ones that really want to do this as a model, they work with you to actually make it work.
Mr. Mayor, Alderman Blessum, I don't see an issue with that whatsoever, but what I do see is that I think what we should do is put together a committee, some type of working group, sit down and figure this out and come up with something that's fair across the board. That's the first thing that's coming to my mind as I've been trying to listen. It's hard to say because some are going to use it. Some are going to use it like you explained. Others are going to use it to try and extend what the initial purpose is. And so I want to try and see, can we keep this fair across the board? That's the best explanation I can give standing here right now. But if we put together a working group, maybe that is the best option.
Mr. Mayor, if I can continue.
Continue.
So the other thing that comes to my mind with that, and you kind of laid it out the right way, Chief, is, we've, as part of some of our discussion on this, talked about having a working group from the community, from the business owners that would be self-policing in some ways. Now, I don't know that long-term that's productive. I don't know that it solves a lot for us. But I do think this is one of those spots where understanding from the current owners, hey, how do we police this? How do we come up with the right answer? Because, again, I don't want to sit up here and guess. I don't want to bring a motion that says, hey, let's guess this way now and see if that one sticks. And then we got a different group of the owners that come to us and say this doesn't work. So I throw it out to my colleagues to think about over the coming weeks on what's the right way. We all know the same aim here. We don't want one operator doing multiple premises. I mean, I think, Chief, for you guys to enforce, that can't be good. We never know where the pop-up's going to be. I mean, they've got a permit, I get that, but the point is that it's a moving target all the time. We need order. We've chosen the regulatory environment, so now we need order, and we need you to be able to work with them to make that work. And so, Chief, I'd be willing to talk about that and to try to do that. And Mr. Mayor, it's sort of up to you on the direction that we take if you wanted to do something along those lines. But the other thing I would say, though, is there's been a team that's done these things. We've already tried that path, and I don't know that we should expect a different outcome from the next round either, because they did good work. They brought a set of principles that they thought were the right ones, and I think we've deviated from those already.
City Clerk.
Something for the council to contemplate too. You can vote on the motion that's on the table of the same motion that we had at the previous meeting, but if that gets voted down, there might be a multi-prong approach to this. I love the language that the city attorney's office provided, and I think that would be great to add. I also think another good option is, the 48-hour rule. Like, we're only going to allow them for up to 48 hours. I will also state that admin approvals talk about special event permits, and maybe it's, instead of putting the bar's address on there, we start putting the location of where they're doing the business. So if you see that 4 council meetings in a row, there's, 24 permits at 48 hours apiece to this one, place, it can be called to question at the council meeting. And then it can be decided whether or not we're going to further permit more at that location for the business that they're doing. Those are just different options and, things like that to think about. That might, it might be a multi-pronged approach to solve the problem.
Mr. Mayor, and City Clerk, that is a great idea. But again, if we're going to keep it fair across the board, we have to sit down and let's write this out. We've met with some of the bar owners, but I would invite, if we're going to do this, I would invite a collective group that really wants to get together. Let's hash this out and let's figure it out. But make it, I'm just going to say it again, make it fair so that my officers actually and the inspectors that are going to come can actually do their piece.
Okay. Anything further for the chief? All right, thank you, Chief Fry.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to vote again on the motion that was passed last time with the, do you want to just read the motion, clerk, please?
It's to add language for 21 event days in a calendar year, no limit if contiguous to the licensed premises.
Okay, everybody understand the motion? It's what we voted on and passed last time. Is there further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, can I just?
Alderman Blessing.
Thank you. I just want to mention one last thing. I'm gonna vote no on the motion, because I think there must be a better approach here. But I would suggest those that care about this a lot, that we heard from, we need to hear from you on how we solve it. Because leaving it as it's been is not gonna work for me. We've chosen a path that's regulatory in nature, and we're gonna regulate this. So I want to hear from those that thought that this was the wrong approach, so we get the right approach.
Okay, Alderman Hayes.
This is based off information we all got. We're talking about off-premise permits of 21. There's only one bar listed that exceeded that 21 permits, and that was with 34. The next closest was 16. So if those numbers are accurate, the whole year of 2025, we only would have had one bar that would have exceeded the 21 allowed to them the way it is currently. So we're not that far off. There wasn't that many permits, special permits issued.
So just to clarify though, so is there currently a limit? We were imposing, I mean, this motion would impose a limit, but there currently is no limit, right?
But
Yeah, okay,
close to our limit that we are proposing.
okay. Fair enough. Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, to that point, and the question just asked the clerk, some of these special event permits can be good for up to 2 weeks, so if we roll that back in, I mean, who's running a 2-week event? Not a lot of individuals are, but again, if we maybe we rein that back into, again, to the 48-hour mark and have some sort of cap in place. Again, I'm with Alderman Blessing. We've decided to go the regulatory route, which means we have to police this because we have individuals working around the system. And again, to Alderman Fuller's point, right? Like you can only run one premise. I would argue that it's probably already there, right? Like you have one licensed premises and it's the address is on the application and on your license, and then we have someone that's running a second establishment, kind of playing dumb. This is, and again, it's a loophole. Bravo to them, I guess, for figuring it out in some ways. So again, I think when we see loophole being exploited, we do our best to regulate it because that's what we've been asked to do. So,
Okay. It looks like I see no further discussion offered, so it looks like it's time to vote on the motion, which the city clerk read just a minute ago.
The motion failed 0-7.
Okay, Alderman Pittner.
just for clarification, then, because this was on, and I guess maybe we kind of undid the work we did, probably rightfully so, from the feedback that we got. Will we expect this on a further agenda then, to the subsequent agenda to discuss kind of solving the problem again?
City Attorney?
Mayor Jantz or Alderman Pitt. So I had Pittner, I had this queued up kind of in my review agenda to bring it back at the next council meeting. One question I was going to actually pose too is we do have that auction that's coming up. Is it May 25th? Okay. May 28th? It's coming up at the end of May. So I don't know if it would be helpful to pause the agenda, like the ordinance review until that's sold, to have that sale information to consider alongside all of this. I think it can move through independently because we were gonna consider a fee resolution as a part of this ordinance, and that could proceed along with the budget conversation. I just don't know how bifurcated you want to see the conversations about the alcohol licenses going through. So I had it queued up for the next meeting. That might be a little quick with some of the research and questions that we have pondering, and then we do have the license auctions coming up at the end of May, so maybe, I'd hate to say June. That feels like a long time, but it's after the auction, so you would have that information to consider alongside it. So I'd leave that in the purview of the council. I could have a draft to you next week if you want to see what that looks like, but it might be a little quick considering the weight with some of the questions that have been posed.
Yeah, City Attorney, I guess my thought would be, we're shooting to have this stuff go into effect in 2027.
Yes,
So we do have some time.
you do.
It's not like we have to rush. And your point about having seen the results of the auction at the end, I mean, it maybe would be informative to know that. So I guess Alderman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has to be done right. I think we can all agree on that. We want it to look the way that we think is best. But I think this discussion started with this council, and I think that we need to have the opportunity to have a first and second reading before the end of June when this council changes. So that would be my pressure on a timeline, is for us to get this resolved.
Okay, point taken. Further comment or discussion? Alderman Pittner.
Yeah, I'll echo Alderwoman Olson's comments, just in the sense that I maybe just personally, I'd like to not leave this on the docket for the next council, but again, there will be a lot of institutional knowledge that'll carry over, and they'll be able to handle this. I have no doubt. But again, I would like to see it sooner rather than later, and again, I can work to research whether it be different options, and Alderman Blessum has stated, for anybody who's had an issue with these, or how this was handled, or what the council had decided, again, I don't think they're afraid to speak up to us and speak out, and if we can expedite this in some way, or if someone on this council has ideas on how to bring this up, I would encourage them to place it on an agenda, and we'll have a discussion as this body, just like we have tonight. I guess those are my thoughts, so.
Alderman Blessum.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think to Alderman Olson's point, I think it would be good for us on the second meeting in May to have the first reading. That gives us 2 meetings in June to try to resolve it and finish it up, and just to respect the work that's gone into it. So I think we'll still get the feedback then before we're done, and then we can still finish it up in June.
City Clerk.
It's my understanding that we've already approved it on first reading, so the next time we would bring it back, it would be final approval on second reading.
Yes.
But I do concur with the changes that we'll need in City Works, the education pieces that we'll need to have with the license holders, that I wouldn't push it out farther into the year either, so that we can get all that lined up, because usually it's in October when I open up renewals. So I would like all the information that we can start getting that worked out with staff.
Well, to your point, City Clerk, I mean, the other piece of this that has to be included is the pricing structure. So that's another significant part of it. City Attorney.
And one thing I was just gonna note too is so our agenda schedule that we go by internally with the city, I know so we have a meeting today, our next meeting's on the 20th, so for all intents and purposes, the public looking at this, it looks like, oh, we've got 2 weeks to work on this, but we publish the Monday ahead of time, and our agenda deadline is the Thursday before the publication date. So those deadlines come lightning fast internally, so if you have changes that you wanna see made, please send them to us as early as you can. Because once we get past that Thursday, then we look into having to ask for permission to amend the agenda. If we publish the agenda, then we have to republish the agenda if it's done after that Monday deadline. So please send those sooner rather than later, because it turns into quite the show behind the scenes to try to get everything amended in time.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. Alderman Pittner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that fee schedule, City Attorney, is there a rough draft on that as far as what those fees, are you looking from the council to bring it to us and us decide kind of
So the way I was gonna draft it is just bring the fees as they currently stand, and if council wants more information or what other cities have for their fees on those, we can definitely bring those with too.
And then, if I may continue.
Go ahead.
The off-sale license that we had decided to implement, do you have a thought on that, or is that you looking for direction from the council as well?
I would look for direction from the
Okay.
council. We could
Okay.
certainly bring
Just-
what other cities are charging.
Just wanted to bring up for this body to consider that since we have created an off-sale license, we have to consider what that purchase will be, initial purchase fee, and then a renewal fee, ongoing. And then just one last item to that point and to this discussion that was touched on before. There is a license that is auctioned, and if we want to make sure, I know the city is advertising that, but to make sure that any entrepreneurs out there or individuals that want to get into the bar industry, auction for retail liquor license on the screen, live public auction at City Hall, Thursday, May 28th at 11 a.m. So, again, one of the, just to that point, right? Get your finances in order, get your business partners, get your ideas out there, and come take a crack at opening a business. So,
All right. Very well. I think we're concluded with that item. Our next item is personal appearances. If you want to make a personal appearance, a speaker's card is required, and anybody who wants to speak needs to fill one of those out there on the tables and in various places. And they have to be submitted to the city clerk. The required information is your name, first and last name, your address, which the address will be held in confidence, and then also the topic that you wish to speak on. And so get those to the city clerk if you wish to speak. Missing information from the speaker card disqualifies the individual from speaking. Each individual will be allotted 5 minutes to make comments. The individual will be notified when their 5 minutes have expired. The 5-minute time limit may be extended by a majority vote of the council. All comments must address the topic identified on the speaker card, be pertinent to the city of Minot and fall under the authority of the city council, be directed to the city council as a whole. Comments may not be defamatory, abusive, harassing, or unlawful, may not include information that is exempt or confidential under North Dakota open records law, and may not interfere with the orderly conduct of the meeting. Individuals will not have access to the city's audiovisual technology unless by prior arrangement, and individuals may not yield their allotted time to another individual. So this is public appearances. I guess we're getting speakers cards still. So please stand by. The first speaker is Wendy Bagley, and she is going to speak about Robert's Rules of Order, agenda item 7.2.
Thank you, Mayor Dancer and council members. Thank you so much. And considering the agenda item 7.2, a huge kudos to Ms. Stahlheim for the amazing amount of work. I've drafted a lot of rules, and you basically went from about 2.5 pages of rules to about 13. That's extensive. So, and you did a fantastic job. I did want to point out a couple things. First of all, I did just recently sent Mr. Mayor, I sent you an email with a parliamentary opinion to back up my comments from the last time I spoke in City Council. I believe that was March 2nd, I believe, concerning reconsideration of the motion. And just wanted to share, again, I'm grateful for the work that is going into to review the rules of order. I wanted to make a few points. First of all, one reason why a lot of organizations will default to Robert's Rules of Order is so that you don't have to include everything in the rules, in your own rules. Typically, you would default to that and then include in your rules of order those specific things where your principles are different, or if you want to make it clear. And so I do like a lot of the wording that is in here that has been proposed for the city council, because it does make things a lot clearer. I am very interested and look forward to taking a look at those. Considering the conversation you had earlier, I apologize I was not here in person, as I was taxi driving for a lot of my family members and a sister who left on the plane at 7 o'clock. So when it comes to the chair making motions, typically in Robert's rules, it is very helpful to have the chair be a neutral person to facilitate debate. And yes, according to Robert's rules, the chair can yield their chairmanship position in order to make a motion. I do want to point out something, is that if the mayor does want to make a motion, typically they would get somebody else on the council or in the organization to make that motion for them. If that presiding officer is the only person who wants to make that motion, then it doesn't matter, because most motions need a second. So if the mayor alone is the only person that wants to move that motion, making that change doesn't make sense. Ideally, the mayor would work through somebody else on the council that would be at least that second. Something to consider. I did want to point out that under the definitions, number 15, lay on the table to and in parentheses, it's postpone indefinitely. I did want to point out that postpone indefinitely does not mean lay on the table. Typically, postpone indefinitely means to kill, just completely stop. And it is contradictory to number 24, where you actually say postpone indefinitely means to kill a motion. I do appreciate the fact that this was released to the public, so the public and the council can take a look and find things like that in the future. And then finally, I did want to ask, is there a willingness on the council to procure my services to review this? And if so, may I submit a proposal for services?
Ms. Bagley, I guess I think most organizations, including the city of Minot, are willing to accept even unsolicited proposals that might be useful. So I guess if you want to put something together, I don't see any reason why that wouldn't be received.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you for taking a look at these issues, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Next speaker is Melissa Ferris, who is going to talk about the mayor's speech and it looks like current agenda?
I didn't think to add to it that I wouldn't mind cleaning your ears out one more time about those stupid Axon cameras that are on Axon license plate readers that are on the Minot PD.
Ms. Ferris, you need to stick to what you put on your slip. That's part of the rules.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, I thought I'd ask. It's worth it. In the meantime, I thought it was interesting that you talked about a quote-unquote worker shortage when there's so many people that are desperate for work that are looking to take any kind of job. There is no such thing as a worker shortage if you do the actual legwork to start looking stuff up about an idea about what our actual unemployment numbers look like, the waking nightmare people have as far as housing and half a dozen other things. Some of the stuff that I was catching in job service is the fact that a lot of the farmers and other employers were outright trying and getting special federal help to get in foreign employees for what had traditionally been U.S. jobs. And it's deeply disturbing. The lie is that we quote unquote don't want to work. The but ugly reality is that these were once living wage jobs or jobs that you as citizens could have in an emergency. When I tried to apply for these same jobs in job service, I was literally told that I would quote unquote have to prove that I had the same experience as a foreigner. I could not apply to be trained as a U.S. citizen to do these jobs. And I thought that was deeply disturbing. A good one to look up is Adam Rune's unemployment for how our unemployment statistics have these ridiculously unbelievably low numbers for good reason. They are not accurate, and they're not made to be accurate. They're only made to look good on paper. The reality is that U.S. citizens are desperate for work, but we're working for a living. We can't do stuff that pays minimum wage for part-time hours with no benefits when we're trying to support ourselves and a family. And you can't have 5 or 6 jobs that won't pay nice to live. It disturbs me to see a mayor that unaware of common sense things. And it disturbs me greatly to see other council people, too, that don't seem to understand that stuff. Among other things, too, I would like to see it to where it's easier for us to be able to get at these agenda things, the hours that were available to go ahead and look this stuff up, because I understand our city clerk has hours that go from something like 8 in the morning till 5 at night, or I'm trying to remember your exact hours, I'm sorry, but point being, it's not always easy to look this stuff up, to do research ourselves as citizens, especially if we're trying to get these dead-end jobs to cooperate and play nice, to try to pay our bills. I kind of want to see that, it's easier for us citizens to look this stuff up. And I'd also like to mention, since I'm seeing law enforcement coming up here for this or that they could do with some much better training as far as stuff goes, because I've had several incidents where they obviously did not know very basic things about the law, our basic rights to access stuff, where they did and did not have jurisdiction, other stuff like that. I'm noticing that when they're angry about this or that, or they feel strongly about a certain issue, they don't seem to care about the responsibilities of their uniform, basic respect for public or other things, and it'd be kind of nice if this stuff would, it'd be kind of nice to see if some of these people could get some remedial training, and people that have no business in leadership could sort of be removed so that people that are more competent at certain things could possibly be put in. And thank you. I appreciate you giving me the time to speak.
Thank you for your comments. City Clerk.
Melissa, I would just like to publicly state that our agendas are available at www.minotnd.gov. They're always posted the Monday prior to the meeting. I can never guarantee a time. It could be noon, it could be 7 p.m., but they're almost always, unless the meeting's on a holiday, it's in our resolution to publish 7 days prior. So www.minotnd.gov. You don't have to have me there, but my hours are 8 to 4:30.
May I clarify things? Earlier, as you know, I was looking up what was in the paper, but there was insufficient details, and Mr. Janser's like, oh, you can look this stuff up anytime, and it's like, no, I can't. I can only do this during hours that the employees are there, and to go deep dive into stuff where you want to ask more specific questions, because there's like 30 businesses that want certain different things on that one item, you kind of have to, I don't see where I could find that on the city website, especially if I'm going between jobs or education or whatever, and I've got maybe an hour at 10 p.m. to go ahead and look this stuff up.
Okay, thank you for your comments. I have no other speaker cards, slips, so we will move on. Number 9, miscellaneous and discussion items. Anybody? Alderman Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to read this letter into record. I typically would not read a letter that does not have a person's name on it. It is signed a concerned resident, and so in knowing that, we're not able to respond otherwise. So I want to read it into the record so that if this person feels comfortable in reaching out, again, they should do that. But it is addressed to the City of Minot, dated March 24th, 2026. I'm writing to express serious concern about the possibility of reducing funding or limiting the library to only a few days per week. Decisions like this do not affect everyone equally. People who already own computers, printers, and reliable internet access will not feel much impact. The people who will be affected the most are low-income residents, students, job seekers, disabled individuals, and those who rely on the library for basic access to technology. The library provides computers, internet access, printing, educational resources, resume help, classes, and opportunities that many residents cannot afford on their own. It provides programs and learning opportunities that help people improve their situation, obtain jobs, apply for state programs, and much more. Reducing the library to only a few days per week would make it much harder for people who are already struggling the most to apply for jobs, complete schoolwork, or access important and necessary services. Public libraries are not just recreational spaces. They are one of the few resources that exist specifically to give people opportunity regardless of income. Removing that opportunity would hurt the very people who need the support the most. If anything is done to the library budget, it should be increased because of all they do for the community every day. Sincerely, a concerned resident. And then a postscript on the bottom reads, "This letter was written and printed at the Minot Public Library because I do not own a computer or a printer. That's exactly why access to the library matters so much to people like me."
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Any other miscellaneous? City Attorney.
Just want to clarify, I have down in my notes that I'm going to bring back this alcohol ordinance in the second meeting in May. So I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page as to when you're going to see it again.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay. Anything further? All right, if not, we'll move on to item 10.
Second.
Moved and seconded, we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. We're adjourned.